welcome to Wisdom from North. I'm Jannica, and today I'm here with Jared Bull. Hello, Jared. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, that's nice. I was just on your YouTube channel and it was such a joy. You interviewed me. You have a YouTube channel that's called Mystic Eye. And I was introduced to your work and I have been watching a lot of your videos and you've been doing some amazing work. And you're a spiritual life coach. You give sessions, spiritual counseling, and also through shamanic work training. And you help a lot of people, especially through your YouTube channel where you are speaking about different topics like love and relationships and culture and technology and science, like a bunch of things, covering many, many things. And you also have a lot of wisdom for only being 27 years old, I feel like. I'm not used to interviewing someone who's so much younger than me because you don't have that much life experience, but still it seems like you know so much about life. And I was thinking, it might have to do that with that you're an old soul, but also what you've been going through. Because you've had a huge trauma in your life and you've managed to heal that and turn that darkness into light and then help so many people, almost turning it into a gift and then helping people. And I find that so powerful because it shows people, it gives people hope when they're in their darkest moments, thinking that, this, I can never feel good. I can never have balance and feel fulfilled. And it's so easy also to make the wrong choice in life when you're met with such difficulties. But you turn it around. And I would love to speak about many things today, perhaps, Kundalini awakening that I know you know a lot about. But I would love for you to start to share your story if you feel comfortable with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that great introduction. I was like, spot on. Nice. Thank you. Yeah. So really it started when I would say like my story really started when I joined the military. I was 17 when I enlisted into the Marine Corps. And I had this really patriotic call. I wanted to be overseas. I wanted to be fighting. 9/11, that really impacted me on a deep level. I remember I was in sixth grade, and when 9/11 happened, I just was crying and really, really hit emotionally by that, seeing all the people dying. And so I told myself in that moment, I'm going to go find the people who did that. It was like this justice, like go get them type of attitude. And that really shaped my life in a big way. And then when I was 17, I said, yeah, I'm going to join the Marine Corps and then I'm going to go find the terrorists, right? And so I went on deployment when I was 18 years old, my first combat deployment to Afghanistan, and it was incredibly intense. I experienced culture shock while I was there because being in Afghanistan, in a remote part of Afghanistan where no U.S. troops had ever been before, people looked at us like we were aliens. Literally, they thought the glasses that we were wearing were X-ray glasses. I'll never forget when we were walking through the villages, like the men would throw their wives into their little huts, their little clay sand huts, because they thought that we were like looking through the women's clothes with our sunglasses. But it was just sunglasses to protect our eyes. So we were in this area that was completely foreign to us. No Americans had ever been there before, and it was just a really chaotic and kinetic environment. And so I saw a lot of death there. I had a lot of experiences there where, I had to kill people, and I had one specific experience where I accidentally killed a child. And that was within the first month that I was there, and that made me question everything. When I accidentally killed a child, I just said, okay, there's something like this. I don't feel like the good guy here. There's something's wrong. And because I was always really involved with the people. I was talking with the people, with the translators, and they were all great people, and they were suffering for us being there. And so that was a really big question. Being an 18-year-old, I had to ask myself, how did I get here? What were the steps that that I made and the decisions that I made in my life to get me in this space? And why are these people suffering? Because they're not the bad guys. And even some of the people that we were fighting in combat, they weren't bad either. They just wanted us out of their country. They're like, dude, why are you in our country right now? Like, we're just farmers, or, we're just trying to do our own thing over here. So when I left, I did another combat deployment to Afghanistan a year later because we had to go back. And then when I got out of the military in 2012, which was 4 years after I had joined, I was in this really, really just dark space. All the loss and the grief from my friends dying started coming up. A lot of the loss and the grief around killing other people came up, because you do have to put a part of your soul away when you do that to another human being. You just have to. You're trained to. And so the military systematically trains you how to be a killing machine, and you do have to put up energetic layers and walls on your being in order to make it through those experiences unconsciously. And
Can I just ask a little bit about that?
yeah, please.
You're saying unconsciously, but you're still trained to do it. Is it like you're training yourself not to feel, basically?
Yeah. Like, basically, the way that I saw it was, the training is so intense and it's so frustrating that you get so upset and you get so angry, and so that anger, they'll mess with your psychology, so that anger becomes a fear. Anger is a mask for fear. Anger is simply just an expression of, we don't know what's going on and we don't have control. So their training is specifically programmed to make you incredibly angry and frustrated and confused. So what that does is that contracts your energy down. And so, like, when I was in the military, I was like 187 pounds of pure muscle, because all my energy was contracted down, and I used that muscle to build up a wall between me and my environment. A lot of people, this is why they overeat, because it builds up a wall between them and the environment, so the energy doesn't hit them till after the situation has passed. So I was really just like really, really upset all the time and angry and intense. And when I started getting out of the military, I was experiencing, like, that was 2012, and I think that was a big year for the globe in terms of awakening. I started experiencing everything. I was leaving my body. I was getting visitations by, like, dark beings. I was having sleep paralysis and out-of-body experiences spontaneously all the time. I was not sleeping. I would have, like, the people that I had killed, like, come into my room at night, like when I was, like, in the sleep paralysis state. And so I just thought I was going crazy. And I had no concept of spirituality from that level at all, that I could remember. Once I cleared through that, I remembered certain experiences when I was younger that, like, led me down that path from the spiritual realm. But I had all this stuff pouring in, and it was all darkness. And so I just went to I started seeing a therapist, and they just prescribed me medication and stuff like that. But there was something within me that said, no, this isn't right. So I was on that for 3 months, and I threw it all away. I didn't do it.
Can I ask you? Oh, there's a feedback here. Hi, hello. Have you heard similar stories from your comrades experiencing the same? I mean, this is pretty intense, that you're actually meeting the ones you've killed, that they come down to you. Do you think they were really there, or do you think it was your own projections or fear or past just hunting you in a way? I guess I have two questions here. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll answer that right off the bat. Yes, I do believe it was really them, and two, I do believe it is your own projections. That's how reality works. Like, the higher levels of reality that are less dense as the physical, that's the mind. Now, you can visit those places in spirit, but so, like, when you would have these visitations, yes, it's a projection of your inner psyche, but your inner psyche is a reality just like this physical reality. It's just a less denser form. Like, all the mental forms that we have, everything in the world that's created around us, like the cars, the laptops, the houses, they all exist in the human mind. And that's like an actual layer of reality that's just less dense. It's the mental layer. And you can go there within your consciousness and see what's going on there. And then it works its way down and trickles through a human being. And if a human being has enough willpower, they have enough action and emotion to charge that thought, then that thought becomes manifested into reality as physical reality. So yes, it is a projection of your interior psyche, but at the same time, it's real because that's like it's in your mind, and your mind is a real place. It's a real that's a real mystical view, though.
Hmm. Wow. Those things are complicated.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, because it's all in your mind, but how is it real then, But we might come back to that later. But did you think that this was happening to you because you kind of had an opening already to these abilities that we will speak about later as well? Or is this common to experience when you've experienced so much trauma? It's common to have this experiences with the other side. Like I'm getting what I'm getting at here is that when the trauma gets so deep, I think sometimes that you are leaving your body because it's almost like your body can't handle it. Would you say that that is so?
Absolutely, and I see that all the time. A lot of trauma victims, they're spaced out. They feel the energies, and they're very sensitive. They feel the energies of everything in the room and other people, but they don't feel their own body. They don't even feel the bottoms of their own feet. That was my case for years, and the reason why that is because the spirit is afraid to come back into the body. If the body is tight and tense and locked in this position of tension from the trauma, then the spirit can't come down because the body's contracted. And so, like, if we can imagine our spirit as this like thing above us that's like it's a vortex of energy, and then you have the body. If the body's contracted, then that your spirit can't come down through the top. It'll just stay up there. So instead of your spirit fully embodying the body and being grounded in the body, it's tapping into everything else around the environment. It's spilling over into the environment. That's why a lot of people who have had trauma, they're always on edge. They're always looking around them. They feel everything that's going around them. They're in that fear-based response. They're always scanning the environment. That's because their spirit is out here. It's out here. It's scanning in the environment. It's touching everything in the environment, but it's not filtering down into the body.
Wow.
And so when the body can integrate the trauma, then the spirit's feels relaxed enough to fully come into the body.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I've never heard it explained like that. And also why I'm asking is that, you healed this, and that is so, I find so inspiring for others to hear, and myself also, even though I haven't experienced that, but I've had my own kind of small traumas. So
Absolutely.
So how did you go about then? You went to a therapist, and the medications, you felt it was wrong, basically.
Yeah, so there's two things that I want to say here. One, I think once we experience something like trauma, it's recorded in the body. It's not going anywhere. Now it's the point of whether you integrate it or it just stays unintegrated into the body, or like just wreaking havoc on the nervous system. So the trauma will always be in the body and it will always be there, but you have to integrate it. And once you integrate it, you can learn the wisdom from the experience. You can feel more peace. You can continue up the ladder of consciousness. So for me, I'm still always integrating certain experiences. I mean, I've integrated them and I get them, but they come in waves. Like, so one year that trauma might come back and I might experience like the insanity and chaos of war and what that felt like in my body. And I'll just be alone and I'll have to cry. Like this past weekend, I had a really intense, I made some bigger moves, bigger business moves. I raised my energy level. I really put myself out there in new ways and came across my fear. And so every time I raise up that on the energy level here, I'm also able to go further down into the darkness as well, because the two are interdependent. Right. And that can be a little scary for people, because they're like, a lot of people just want to stay here. They want to stay in the middle, not rock the boat too much. Okay, I don't have to go deep into the darkness. I don't have to go too much into the light. But the thing that I've realized from my own experiences as I've integrated and healed this stuff is the deeper you go into the light and the more you raise your energies, the more you will drop down into that darkness.
Thank you for saying that. That was helpful for me to know.
Oh, good. Good, yeah, yeah. Because everyone, we think it's all healed and we're all good. Like I've done so much therapy. Like I still see a therapist. I love my therapist. I still have coaches. I love coaches. Coaches help me, and I'll get into this perspective a little bit more. But I'm always healing, but at the same time, I'm always progressing. And people, I think they look at trauma, and I see this all the time with some of my clients who come to me and I work with. They say, "Oh, I've had this trauma, so this is holding me back from this in life." I say, "Well, yeah, it's holding you back up to this point because you're allowing it. When it comes to trauma, it's always going to be there in the body. We just have to work with it and integrate it, but honor the past self who's been traumatized, honor the present self who's dealt with that trauma and who's healed aspects of it, but then also honor your future self, who you want to become. So the healing work never stops. The integration never stops. You just have to honor each part of your being. I honor my past self. I go to therapy when I need it. I honor my present self. I do my meditations when I need them. And I also honor my future self. I work with coaches who are always pushing me forward. And that's what it means to really be a holistic human being. You honor the past, the present, and the future as to where you want to go, because all of those versions of you exist within your body. They exist all right here. Does that make sense how I
Yeah,
kind of describe
yeah.
that?
I oh, we get some feedback here. I love your perspectives. I haven't seen it that way before.
Mhm.
I'm just noticing I'm getting some aha here's aha
Oh,
moments.
good.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I was curious about then how we integrate. You're saying we need to integrate it and it's still in the body, which is something I didn't know. I actually thought that the trauma would leave the body when you worked on it, but you're saying no, it's staying there, but you have to integrate it. So what does that mean then to integrate the trauma?
Yeah, from my experience, so I've done all types of therapies, regular talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, myofascial release, yoga,
You
meditation. Like
tried
I've
it
done
all.
everything. I tried it all, right? And I eventually got to a point where I was like, oh, wait, like I'm trying to chase something that's just like I'm trying to heal as quickly as I can. I'm just going this like healing trap or this healing circle, and not that those things aren't effective, because when I do them, I do step up a level and I can feel it. But I realize that like integration means just acceptance, like acceptance of what's there. And so if you have a lot of, like, for instance, my shoulder, that's where I hold a lot of my trauma, and my left shoulder, I can feel it. And so sometimes when I go into meditation, or even when I'm not in meditation, even when my body's just really, really calm, I'll feel the shoulder start like crunching up and getting tightened. And I'll go into it and I'll feel the emotions. I'll feel the helplessness, the hopelessness, the sadness, the despair. And it'll start coming up into my awareness. And I'll just be like, yep, here it is. And then once I embrace that and I hold that non dual perspective of being, okay, yep, this is the pain, this is the darkness of creation. It's okay, it's not bad. It's just the darkness of creation, and I don't identify with that. Once I do that, I heal it, I integrate it, and then that changes it into wisdom. Literally changes it into experience. It changes it into thankfulness and gratitude. Because in those moments, I realize that despair, helplessness, all these other things that I've experienced that are bad, when you integrate them, you realize how much more powerful of a being that you are. You get to experience the opposite of that, and that's the purpose of it. It's like you experience this so much darkness, you're able to have the capacity to experience so much more light. So if you've experienced so much despair and powerlessness and hopelessness, well, guess what? If you go into that darkness and you sit with it and you don't allow it to overcome your mind, and you just allow it to come to the surface of your awareness. Yep, there it is. It's not bad. It just simply is. This is exactly what's arising within my being. Well, then you change that and you get to experience complete power. You get to experience complete, the opposite of despair, which I guess would be hope and thankfulness. And so when you that's really, I see as the purpose of integrating it and and the function that it serves. And when you have those experiences, the opposite end of experiences, well, then that drives you to take more action into the world. And that drives you to be more of a force in the world. So I believe that the trauma gets integrated in the body, but it still stays there. So I wouldn't even call it trauma at that point. I'd call it like a fuel almost. One of the reasons why I got into the work that I'm doing now is just because it didn't even feel like I had a choice. It was like as I integrated the trauma more, I just had these perspectives because I integrated it, and then I wanted to share these perspectives. Right? It's like the trauma is like this stamp or this egg gets put in your body, and then when you work with that egg, it hatches and it grows into this life, and then that life goes out into you and it helps the world. And so I think that's the perspective on it. You can, if you integrate it, then it can become a gift to the world. But that's an ever-going process. As you go deeper down into the darkness of whatever that thing is, you can go up more into the light and serve more people in more powerful ways.
Wow. Really profound. It makes you really trust the universe in a way, because then it makes sense. Because in those dark moments that I've had, I felt like this doesn't make sense. Is this supposed to be like this? I don't trust life. But it's hard in the moment when you're in it to see that this can be any good or can be transformed to anything. But when I look back, I can feel what you're saying. I haven't had that of a shift, but I definitely feel like I can really experience such light moments, which I didn't before. I could feel have more pleasure moments, like, or being on stage and felt like grand, but it was more about my ego. But once I started to transform myself, I could just feel happiness just by running on the beach. That's why on my Instagram account, I have so many pictures of running, because it's such a happiness feeling for me. Instead of like verses from many years ago where I had to get something in order to be happy, like have a boyfriend to be happy, or have a role in a musical to be happy, if you know what I mean. I couldn't just be happy. I had to have all these things. So there's a shift there. I had a question. What was it? About the healing. Can you talk a little bit about if one is feeling now really in a dark place? What can we do by ourselves? Do we need maybe help to go to a therapist to work on this, or can we actually sit down and do a lot of work ourselves? Now I'm remembering what I was asking. You said it's important that the mind gets in control, that you sit with it and accept it, but that it doesn't override the mind or something. I didn't quite understand what you meant by that.
Yeah. So I'll get into that. So we have three main centers within our body that we actually can use to navigate the world. And I actually talk about this in one of my courses, in my Empowering Empath course. We have the mind, we have the heart, and we have the digestive system. Okay. And so most people in the West or in the modern world are only using the mind to navigate life. They live in the mind, their stories are real. But we also have the heart. The heart has a neural network. There's like a new whole field called neurocardiology, where they study just the link between the mind and the heart. And then we also have the gut. And the gut has its own neuronal system in it as well. And so as you awaken more and you get deeper into the body, as your energies go deeper into the body, you use all three of these to navigate the world, and all three of them can come into alignment. And this reflects in our language. We're just not really aware of it. So like a person, when they say that, their heart speaks or their gut speaks. So their heart says like, oh, this person holds my heart, or, oh, I love that place. Like that place holds my heart. Well, that was because that place was shooting a lot of energy through your heart chakra at that time when you visited there. So you had this heart expanding experience. The gut also is a way we can navigate the world. It talks about, you hear people say, oh man, it takes guts to do that, right? Or, oh, just follow your gut instinct, right? Like that was one, when I was in combat, I used to use my gut all the time. I would feel my stomach would just start rumbling and rattling, and I would say, oh man, I don't have a good gut feeling about this. And then I would tell my patrol leader, I say, hey guys, I think we're about to get contact. I think we're about to be in combat. I think the enemy is about to start shooting at us. My gut is telling me so. And so when we become aware of all these three centers and how we can use them, we can navigate the world in a much better way. What was your original question? Because this was to come back to your original question. It sounds like I'm going off track, but I remember it does connect somehow.
Well, it was interesting. I was wondering, actually, um, feedback again. I was wondering how you could do this work yourself, like sitting on the couch. Yeah.
Right. So there you can do part of this work yourself. However, it does help to have the energy of another person there because what happens is you have X amount of energy, right? In the yoga tradition, it's called the Pranamaya Kosha. This is your settle energy. Your Pranamaya Kosha, or the settle energy part of you, is the part of your being that like it's like the patterns in your life. So for instance, if you go for a run, that's you're programming your settle energy to go for a run again in the future. If you eat, then you program your settle energy to want to eat again in the future. It's the part of your being that is beyond the physical, the mental, and the emotional. It's like the space in which all those things can actually occur. So when you have so let's say you've had this crazy experience where, let's say you were abused as a child. So you learned that the people who are supposed to take care of you don't take care of you. So then you embody this mental pattern of never trusting your caretakers. You can never trust the people that are closest to you. So that creates a pattern in your life to push people away. So that pattern to push people away as a safety protective mechanism is an energetic signature within the Pranamaya Kosha. Now you can sit there all day and meditate and say, oh, I want to try to change this pattern around. However, what's really going to change that pattern around quickest is if a person who has an energetic signature of being completely trusting in life comes into contact with you. On the Pranamaya Kosha level, we are all linked. We're all interacting with each other. Like right now, like we're speaking, our thoughts are connecting, our emotions are connecting. We're not in the same space physically, but mentally and emotionally, we're in the same space right now. At the Pranamaya Kosha level, if we were to look at our energies would be steadily connected right now. So the more you can be around people who have those aspects of you that you want to get integrated, the quicker you will change and the quicker you will integrate those traumas. That's why, we hear this all the time. People say you turn into the people that you hang out, like the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Well, that's true because their energetic signatures of life are being programmed onto you. That's why it's so important to have somebody that you're working with, like a therapist or a coach. Like I have my own coaches, and like I have like when I can afford it, I'm gonna have a coach for everything. I'm gonna have a fitness coach, a nutrition coach, a business coach, a financial coach. I'll have a coach for every aspect and area of my life because it's not the information that they can provide. It's their actual life energies, and it's being with them and in contact with them that will change you the quickest. So if you want to integrate your traumas, or if you just want to change the patterns within your life, the quickest way you can do that is to really open up with another individual and ask that individual to really open up with you. That's real transformation. And we do this all the time subconsciously in relationships. We just don't know it. Like think about a relationship that you had in the past where you were really attracted to a person and you're like, oh man, they have all these aspects. And I mean, I can look at my own past and say that a lot of the people that I was attracted to in the past, it was because I didn't have aspects that they had. And I wanted those. I didn't know that at the time. I was just attracted to them. But then after we got in a relationship, I started integrating those aspects of them because our pranamaya koshas were really, really entangled. And they get really entangled when you bring sexual energy into it. That's like a glue. That's a complete glue. But when you link and merge with that person, you start to change your own energetic signature and the way that your own energy patterns function. And then what happens? You eventually get to a point where it's like, okay, you've learned everything that you can learn from this person. They've learned everything from you. And then the relationship no longer needs to be because you changed what you wanted to at the Pranamaya Kosha level. A lot of people aren't aware of the subtle energy body at the conscious level, though.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I definitely feel when you are having a sexual bond that a lot more is happening than we know. And
Oh
that's why
yeah.
it's also people come back to each other again and again, I think sometimes, even though they feel they're done in a way, they feel they should
Mhm.
move on, but they get together again and again. So, can you speak a little bit about your Kundalini awakening? It seemed like you tried everything, like you tried so many therapists, but also many spiritual directions. And can you speak a little bit about what you found in the Kundalini tradition or Kundalini yoga? Because I watched a video with you. It was 3 hour long, and I watched the whole thing. I thought it was so interesting. Yeah, you spoke with another girl. You spoke about Kundalini awakening, and it was just so fascinating when you shared how you had different experiences with this Kundalini energy. And I've never experienced this energy, so it just
Mm.
fascinates me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm still learning it. I'm still always learning what this energy is about. I read like when it first happened to me, it was about, let's see, that would have been 2013. At the end of 2013 was when my initial Kundalini awakening happened to me. I was sitting at my computer. I had taken off a month from or a semester of school to just write. I just wanted to write about my war experiences. And so I was sitting at my computer, I was writing about my war experiences, and all of a sudden I felt this warm energy in the bottom of my spine. And all of a sudden, this energy shot up my spine, it went out my head, the light above me went out, and my computer screen went totally blank. Like everything, like shorts, all the electronics around me short circuit. And I went into like this trance state, and my body started moving back and forth like this. And immediately I just knew that I had to be outside. So I ran outside and I just started like hugging a tree. And I didn't know at the time I was actually grounding all the energy that was coming through because it would have fried my system completely. And so I ran outside and then I just grounded the energy and I had no idea what had happened. And after that, all like that started the process of unraveling all the unconscious material, all the unconscious, like the pain, the suffering, the hurt, the fear, everything that I had held within my body. The body records everything wherever it goes, not just the mind, but the whole body. So if you're in a really happy, loving environment, you record that happiness and the love into your body. So, but if you're in angry, violent environments, your body records that as well. And so, what the Kundalini energy does is it comes in, it explodes out from what I guess we would call as Brahman or as the unmanifest. You have like at the center of reality, you have like unmanifest. It's like a black hole, basically. Like nothing comes in, like whatever goes in, like doesn't come out again. But you have the unmanifest, right? And then all of reality springs out from that nothingness. In the yoga tradition, we call this shunya. And so I felt like all this stuff that within my psyche and even the collective psyche just started coming out of my body. So I was experiencing all the fear, the anxiety, all these things that war that my body didn't process that I just shoved down. Like my body would go into these environments in war or whatever, and then it would take on that war, and then it would just shove it down and say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with this," right? So the Kundalini, what it does, it says, "Nope, we're going to clear out your whole body. We're going to just clear out your whole body energetically. We're going to clear out the mental body, the emotional body, the energy body, all of it. We're just going to clear out." And so within the next 2 or 3 years, I just started going through the layers and layers of past. The emotional patterns that were established and locked onto me from my environments, the mental patterns that were locked onto me and put onto me from my environments. And they just kept falling off and all the layers just started coming away. And so it was like every single month I felt like I was just like I had lived like 20 or 30 years of experience because I was integrating and processing all the experiences that my body had had up to that point. And so one of the interesting things is once you process things in your life, after you process things into your life, you process your ancestors' stuff as well, because your body is a product of all your ancestors before you. Like every decision that your ancestors made and didn't make is locked in this body. That's what created you. Like your parents got together, your parents were created by your grandparents, so on and so forth. So your body is this memory stick of your entire genetic line. So whatever is not processed in your genetic line, like it will come out and it will be processed with this Kundalini energy. It's the energy of creation. Because in order for Kundalini energy is the energy of evolution. And so in order for things to evolve, it needs to evolve past the genetic line. So if your body is a product of every single decision that your grandparents and your ancestors made, then you are like the peak of your genetic line, and Kundalini is driving you uh, forward. So Kundalini is like really, it's this mysterious energy in the sense that it's creating whatever it wants to. It's the peak of evolution. So if you have Kundalini with you, you don't necessarily know what you're becoming.
Wow. Wow, I'm learning so much here. Yes, I've always had a huge respect for Kundalini awakening and people working with Kundalini yoga. Because, like you're saying, you don't know how it will react in you. It's almost, it's not the same, but I'm reminded of ayahuasca. Like people that have taken that don't know what they will experience. It can be
Mm-hmm.
really bad things and it can be wonderful things. And yeah, and I don't know if I would have dared to take ayahuasca. Like I'm curious about it because I know there are some huge revelations that you can get and really fast healing. But then again, I don't know how I would react, how vulnerable I am if I would be able to take it. Um,
Yeah.
so did you practice this Kundalini awakening consciously, or did it actually just happen because you so much happened to you? You seem like a pretty sensitive guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't, yeah, I had no intention of awakening the Kundalini. And I mean, and honestly, to be honest with you, it's been such a crazy journey and I've learned so much. But there's times where I'm like, dude, I almost wish that didn't even happen because it just forces, it's either like when Kundalini erupts, it just, you go with the ride or you get lost, tumbled in the wave. You can either ride on the top surface of the wave and surf it, or you can get carried along and tussled in the wave. Either way, you're going forward. So when your Kundalini activates, you're just going to be pushed forward through life, and whether you like it or not. So you're damned if you do go with it, you're damned if you don't. So it really is a scary driving force. And it did. It made me incredibly sensitive. I mean, it made me point. Sometimes I can be so sensitive where I'll just feel if another person's thinking about me in a certain way because I'll feel that energy come in and I'll be like, oh, yep, someone's trying to think about me and they're trying to reach out. Okay, I should reach out to them. And like that's literally what like oneness means. When you become so sensitive, you know when certain people are thinking about you or when you need to reach out, and you no longer become this individual within an environment walking alone. You are that environment. This thought comes in, this person's energy comes in, this emotion comes in, and you realize, oh, I should reach out to this person or that person. Like I'll literally feel when a person's energy body wants to reach out and touch me, like I'll feel it. Like if I'm in the right state, I'll feel their Pranamaya Kosha come in. I'll feel it as a subtle wave across my physical body. And then I'll look, okay, I just felt that subtle wave come across me somatically. How is my thought patterns changing now? Okay, yep, that's not a part of my normal stream of consciousness. Okay, this person's thinking about me. Okay, now I'm feeling this. That's not my normal typical emotional stream of energy. Okay, yeah, okay, they're in trouble. Like I'll know before a big event comes in my life. I'll know when I'm about to make a big move or a shift. I'll feel it. I'll sense it. I'll know when I'm about to meet a big client or something like that. Like I'll feel those energetic shifts open up within my consciousness. So it makes you incredibly more sensitive, which can be an advantage for sure. But at the same time, it can be overwhelming at times. Like sometimes I'm just like, dude, I wish I wasn't this sensitive. This is too much. And I actually have a whole thing on that with empaths. A lot of empaths have a lot of unprocessed trauma. So they're very, very sensitive to the energies in the world. And they a lot of them have sensations and experiences that they don't know how to make sense of, and they're confused. And so that can be really overwhelming at times when you don't know what's happening. You know, when I was first awakening with this Kundalini experience, I just started feeling so many more sensations. Because all sensations are, whether it's auditory sensations, somatic sensations, settle sensations, it just helps us navigate the world in a more better way. So the more sensitive you get, you can navigate the world in a better way, but there's some lag time there where you're like, I have no idea what the hell I'm experiencing.
Wow. So, I'm just waiting for the
Yeah, it's a
feedback to
lot.
start.
It's a lot. Please
Yeah.
don't feel like you have to respond right away.
I think I have to talk and then it just slows down. It seems I sound like this monster. Um, so can it all of a sudden happen to people? I remember I've told this story many times, but when I went to India, the teacher said you can have like spiritual awakenings or experiences either through grace or through practicing. So would you say that this happened because you had started opening up and healing and yeah, shredding, or letting go of a load of stuff? Or did it just happen all of a sudden, yeah, by grace in a way?
Yeah, yeah. So I know trauma. When I read so many books on Kundalini after I had this experience, so probably like 20 plus books on Kundalini from doctors, from every type of person, people who had experienced it, to doctors who were studying it. And there's actually a really interesting study that's going on it right now that I was invited to like be a part of. I don't know, I didn't go with it, but um, long story short, I think it is grace. Part of it is grace in the sense that your trauma, they've noticed that trauma activates a lot of people who have Kundalini awakenings have a lot of trauma. Um, so whatever the life and death experience or the trauma experience, it thins the veil between life and death and creation and manifestation and like and non-manifestation, which is that Kundalini energy. Kundalini energy is the energy that stems from the unmanifest into creation. And so if you've had these experiences around life and death, or where your being was physically threatened, then for some reason it brings your awareness or your consciousness into a space where it's open to that creation energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering about that. Thank you for answering that.
Mm.
All right. So, thank you so much for this. Can you give some tip on how we can empower ourselves? I mean, for people who haven't experienced much trauma, they just want to connect deeper with themselves because, these are heavy traumas, but people who haven't experienced that much, but they want a deeper connection, nevertheless. How can we empower ourselves more? For me, it has been like connecting more with myself and to nature, for instance, just really being more present and noticing my thoughts in my head and trying not to believe in them, realizing that I'm not my thoughts and being kinder to myself, basically. Being kinder to myself. That has been really empowering for me. If you could give some tips on, how we can empower ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everything comes down to like relationship and life. And when I say relationship, I really mean wherever our energy. So I identify myself as just my awareness. Like that's what I am. Like my physical body happens within my awareness. My emotions happen within my awareness. My thoughts happen within my awareness. And so everything really comes down to like awareness and attention. Imagine your awareness or your focus or your attention as being who you really are. So whatever you place your awareness, your attention, and your focus on, that's what's going to grow and that's what's going to empower you. So if you're placing your awareness on the attention on the news and the news is only spewing out like, oh, the world's dying and everything's chaotic and you should be worried and frightened, then you're giving your power away because that's where your attention's going. And wherever your attention goes, that's where your energy goes, and that's going to grow within you. So if if you want to grow more and deeper into yourself, then focus on yourself. Spend time alone and just building a relationship with yourself. That's how we build relationships. We build relationships by just being and how focused we are. So if you want to build a relationship with another human being, what do? You start reaching out to them, you start calling them, you start wanting to spend time in their presence, you put a lot of time, energy, and focus on them. If you want to empower yourself, then you just spend time alone with yourself more and more. Real focused time alone, just being with yourself. And like you said, nature as well. Nature is another, I always love going out in nature. Sometimes I do it 3 or 4, even 5 times a week, because nature allows your own spirit to come down. Nature is not controlled by the human ego or the human mind. Cities, countries, villages, that's all controlled by the human mind. It's like we construct them based off of what's most functional for humans. Nature isn't like that. So when you're in nature, you bring down the spirit of nature, which is just acceptance of what is, what's arising. There's no planning. It's being. You're just totally in the moment. So that's why people feel that way when they go out in nature. This is why people say, oh, I just need to get away from everything. And they go out on a vacation to the mountains or something like that. They bring down a different spirit within their being. So, yeah, if you want to empower yourself more and spend, then it just comes down to spending more time alone with yourself and just building that relationship through just being with yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, this has been really beautiful, Jared. You've given me many new perspectives today, and it clings, like it resonates, clings so true. It's just from a different angle that I've heard it before, and although it's quite different that I've heard it before, it's the same in a way. And I love that, because sometimes I feel it's important to have so many speakers being out there talking about these things, because they use different words and come from different experiences, but it's this red thread all along, and all of a sudden I hear something that clicks. It's like, oh, now I got it. Now I integrated that one, and I might have heard it a million times, but it just went by me. So I find that so interesting, that sometimes my consciousness is not ready to hear what I'm hearing. I understand it intellectually, but it's not integrated at all. And sometimes it's just like, I can feel it in my body. Wow, now I got it. So this was really a wonderful interview, and I'm sure that it was very helpful and inspirational for others too. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. And you guys, you can follow Jared on Mystic Eye. And you also have a great website, and you're on Facebook, and you have webinars, and a lot is going on from your side. So, so thank you so much, Jared.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
And thank you for watching, everyone. And remember to subscribe to our channels if you haven't before. Much light from Oslo and the US. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.